the first pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select
Trophy Chase, Arizona.
with the second pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select
Cody Smith, Houston, Texas. The fantasy draft room is now on the clock.
Welcome to the Fantasy Draft Room. I am Chase, and with me, as always, my man Cody. What do we got in store for the people today?
We got another DD mock at patreon.com/allgas. We've got mock drafts going over there all the time. Unfortunately, I was not able to jump into this one as I was at work and being a good worker for my job, but you were able to be present for this one, so you jumped into it. We're going to break this one down and see what happened in this mock, break them down from a value perspective, talk a little bit of combine. Got a lot of stuff coming this week, so I'm excited to break this one down.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a blast. We love doing these mocks with Destination Devy. Make sure you do like and subscribe this video as well. We're going to start things off here with this full first round, looking at Bijan, Stroud, Bryce Young, JSN, A-Rich, Will Levis, Jahmyr Gibbs, Addison, QJ, Charbonnet, Boutte, and
Booty.
Mayer. Booty. I'm sorry. That's right. We got the correct pronunciation. Booty.
Finally
Booty,
got
booty, booty. So, anything that really, I mean, like pretty standard at the top, right? We have Bijan. It's just going to happen, right?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing at the top here, you've got the stereotypical top two quarterbacks in Stroud and Young, in whichever order they go. We'll see if that sticks to the draft. There's been a lot of A-Rich at even the 101 hype coming out over this last week.
Yeah.
So that is really, really exciting if you're a fan of Anthony Richardson and his upside. I know Ray G was trying to get me onto this one about a couple months ago, and I was just like, I don't know, man. I don't know. He could be going in like the third round, and there was a lot of other industry people thinking the same thing. And now we have, all right, here we go. Here's the hype train. It's Anthony Richardson season. Let's chug and plug and go. Anthony Richardson. I mean, he could even be the 101 and start in rookie drafts over Bijan. That has been floated out there. I'm just saying. I'm just saying, as our man Ray GQ would like to say, but doesn't happen here. Still Bijan, Stroud, Young, and then JSN is the one who mixes up what we have typically seen in our rookie mocks. Normally, it's going to be the four quarterbacks in a row, but JSN coming in here at the 104. How do you feel about him going in between the top two stereotypical quarterbacks and the back two stereotypical quarterbacks?
Right now, JSN is my wide receiver one, so I don't have an issue with him being the first wide receiver off the board. I would have a tough time taking him above the two quarterbacks. It would definitely depend upon landing spot, and it would definitely depend upon like landing spot for the quarterbacks and draft capital along with JSN's. Like it would have to be a perfect storm for me to even consider it, just because of the value quarterback has in Superflex. And as we typically assume, A-Rich and Will Levis are both going to be first round draft picks, most likely top 10. So I wouldn't be doing this, but I'm okay with him being the first position player off the board after Bijan.
Is there a position that you could see yourself taking, actually, JSN, at that 104, at a position higher than these two? The ones that are immediately jumping out to me, I mean, like a Kansas City Chiefs landing spot if they don't re-sign Juju. Like Baltimore Ravens are devoid, but you just don't know what the quarterback position is. Chargers, if they get rid of Keenan Allen and they cut him. I know we had the news coming out today as we're recording this one that they're going to keep him. I don't know how confident I am that that is actually going to be reality. But, I mean, there's just not many spots that I could actually see. I mean, Buffalo could be another one that, maybe he replaces Gabe Davis as the 2, but that kind of contradicts what a little bit of Diggs does as well. JSN for me, I think I just have to take the quarterbacks. And so it being in a super flex league, I think you just position like I said, I think on our last video, position over prospects, right?
Yeah. And I'm not going to complain about it. It is a mock. We don't have any landing spots. We don't have anything to really go off of. So
And
if you get conviction in your guy, you take him, right? Like, so I have no
exactly.
issue. A lot of people will have, Jameer Gibbs and JSN going in the 4 or 5 slots of rookie mocks, because a lot of other people aren't so high on A Rich and Will Levis. So um, we have Gibbs coming off there at the 7. That feels pretty standard, followed by Addison and QJ. Charbonnet I was able to get at 10. How do you feel about like this chunk of the draft? It just feels like landing spot draft capital is how the top 3 wide receivers and then running backs are going to kind of fall in place here, right?
Yeah, it definitely feels like the top 3 wide receivers are all going to be about projected landing spot. How high of draft capital did they get? Do any of them go in like top 10? That way it'd probably be a team either passing on a very, very good defensive prospect or trading up to go get a wide receiver. That's probably the only 2 realistic outputs for these wide receivers. And then you probably just go off of the draft capital. There's also, we did our last mock where there's a bunch of just gross landing spots there in the first round where some guys that you don't even think are going to take wide receiver just end up taking these first round wide receivers because it's a scarce commodity, to be honest. Right now, we saw the Bengals come out and say, "Hey, we're not trading T. Higgins. Like, go find your own wide receiver if you want to." They're a hard commodity to come by right now, and so there could be other teams that just say, "Hey, we're going to start reaching on these guys because we don't know when we're going to have the chance to get another one if we really like the profile," kind of like the quarterback position has become. So we'll see where these guys go. I think it is just a jumbled mix here in the top 3, like you said. Booty is definitely outside of the first round for me at this point until I've been proven otherwise through draft capital. And then Gibbs is, everybody's RB2. I think the difference between him and Charbonnet is much less than the difference between him and Bijan. And so I actually have Charbonnet over him, but very, very minor razor thin lines between those 2 for me. So I don't have any problems with really where any of these guys go within the first round. Would be very happy for you. And if I was there at the 110 to get Zach Charbonnet at the 110, I would be ecstatic.
Yeah. We have the scouting combine coming up, and, Jameer Gibbs is a one that has like, I believe, a 4.38 over under on Prize Picks right now. So, he's expected to burn. Bijan Robinson is going to test. Charbonnet is going to go out there. Like, we're going to get to see these guys do their thing, which is really exciting. And same thing for these wide receivers. We're going to see how athletic QJ really is, what Addison looks like, how big he is, how much he weighs in at. I don't think JSN is running. I don't think he's testing.
Nope.
I need to confirm. Okay. Yeah, it's like, I don't think he is.
I don't think it's been confirmed from his camp, but there's been 7 or 8 reports come out that says all signs point to he's not running.
And that's kind of what I figured. Everyone kind of assumes he's slow. They know people think he's slow. There's no reason to prove them right or wrong. It's like, just let them think that. If you're okay with it, you're a first round draft pick. Just swallow that pill and figure it out. But Booty has a chance to really prove himself. I say prove himself, but at least show something. It's not just the on-field things for him, but it's also the interviews. Like, these teams are going to get the chance to see what this kid is made of. And he is a kid. Like, these guys are just getting out of college. Like, this is, an interview process for them. So we'll see how that pans out for him. And he does need to test well. I think the combination of the 2 things, like, he has a big weekend ahead of him that could really make or break his draft, stock. And I feel like he has a lot to gain, but also a lot to lose here. So we'll see what transpires this weekend with Booty. But yeah, I wouldn't be taking him in the first.
Yeah, it's a little bit too high for me as well. I'm not that high at him, but to round out the first round, we do have Michael Mayer, tight end 1 for most people, off of the board. Do we have confirmation yet, as we're recording this, if Mayer is going to be testing or not at the combine? I've heard reports, or I've heard some speculation that he doesn't have to test, because he doesn't really have anything to prove because of his production at Notre Dame. But I don't think I've actually seen anything definitive as to whether he's actually going to test or not.
Yeah, I don't have any confirmation yet as well. It looks like, as of last week, they were talking that he has the opportunity to really show evaluators and leave no questions that he's the true tight end one in this class, because there have been, the risers of Luke Musgrave and with Dalton Kincaid as well. So I don't have confirmation as we record this, or at least that I have heard right away. But yeah, I mean, there is a lot to gain and lose by testing, right? Like, if you're already a locked in first round prospect, a lot of times it's like, hey, why go out there, prove anything? Why tweak anything? Why risk injury when you know you're a first round draft pick? And I feel like that's the case with Michael Mayer. I would be kind of surprised unless he's just a dog and he wants to go out there and prove it. Like, he's like, I know I'm better than this. I know people think I'm slow. Let me put this in their face and prove them all wrong.
Yeah, exactly. You want to put Kincaid over me. You want to put Musgrave over me in all these mock drafts that I'm seeing from Mel Kiper and Todd McShay. I'm going to come out there and show you that I actually am the same athlete as them, and I have the production to prove it. So we'll get past that one. Very interested to see, though, what Michael Mayer actually does here at the Combine this weekend, whether he runs or not. We'll definitely get some good information out of Michael Mayer. And the second tight end that we do see here in the second round, Dalton Kincaid as well. Unfortunately, I believe he is confirmed not to be testing at the Combine, still due to that back injury, although we will probably get to see medicals on him. I think it was a fractured vertebrae or something. Actually a pretty decently, scary injury for Dalton Kincaid, and we'll be looking to see played through it and everything, but we'll definitely be waiting to see what the NFL thinks about those medicals as they come out.
Yeah, and it sounds like from what I've understood as well as Kincaid will test at his pro day, just trying to give it more time, or that's the plan at this point, is to test at the pro day, to give at least himself an opportunity to be in front of these teams and kind of show physically where he is at. But, he got taken here in the late second. We do start the second round off with Josh Downs, Tank Bigsby going at the 202, Kendre Miller, Jalen Hyatt, Devon Achane taking a little bit of a slide here to the 2-5. And then Sean Tucker rounds out the first half of the second round. Love Sean Tucker. I wish his past season went better than it did for him, because just had some real low lights and kind of highlighted some of his weaknesses in his game. Devon Achane, I love. Kendre Miller, big time fan, which is why I was able to get him here in the second. What do you think about this running back cluster? Anything you would change with this top six in the second?
Yeah, Bigsby is a guy who I've actually risen quite a bit on since the first time I watched the tape on him. So I think it's a slight reach, but I think I'd have him probably swapped here with Achane, maybe at the 2-5. I think this is really just a personal preference as you're in this kind of range here at running back. So can't fault you at all for putting one guy higher than the other, although me personally, I would have Devon Achane higher. Kendre, who you're picking here at the 2-3, we did have him on the thumbnail as well. Man, he's going to be one of the most interesting running backs, I think, throughout this process, because it doesn't sound like he's going to test at all. And so the NFL community won't have really anything to go off of for him other than the tape. And it's what all of us fantasy people have watched. And, I've projected him to be the quote unquote sleeper running back that literally everybody is saying is going to be a sleeper. So he's not really a sleeper running back. But I do think that not testing ever is going to actually negatively affect his draft capital. And though while I think he's my fifth running back right now, I don't really see a world where he's actually going to get the draft capital to support that once we get to that point. And so I'm probably going to eventually have to move him down. It's just, I love Kendre, I really do, but I think long term, I don't think he's going to wind up this high as you're taking him here. But again, like I said, he's still my RB5, and you got him here at the RB5 as well. So I really love the pick as it stands now. I just have some long-term concerns, but man, I love the prospect.
Yeah, and that's exactly how I feel here. Is I love the talent and what I've seen on film. I feel like he might be a better runner than Charbonnet, and he looks faster than Charbonnet. So we'll see. You can't film grade his 40, but I feel like you're 1,000,000% hit the nail on the head that Kendre Miller is going to take a hit on draft capital just because of the injury, not testing at all. And there's just so many running backs in this class, not only in the NFL draft, But free agency, there are a ton of bodies available, and they might just see Kendre as a body. It's like, oh, well, do you really want to take a chance on him in the second? No. How about the third? Well, there's other guys that we have on our board too. Like, it does concern me. I hope he does get third round draft capital, but one to monitor for sure.
Yep, and past that, I mean, Devon Achane obviously has a really large weekend here at the combine. What he weighs in at as far as weight, what size he is as far as height, both of those things are going to matter drastically for the fantasy community's outlook of his profile here over the next couple of weeks until he does get drafted. As you mentioned earlier, Sean Tucker does as well. Hopefully he can burn and turn on the 40 on the shuttle, something like that, and that 3-cone, get some NFL draft prospects to actually start to like him, because the NFL side of things, he's kind of like a Kendre Miller guy, where the fantasy side of the league likes him a lot more than what we've seen from the NFL side of the league in terms of just the mock drafts. So he's one that I think has a really big weekend ahead. And then Zay Flowers, I think, did actually slide here a little bit just to pick some running backs over him. I really like the prospect of Zay Flowers.
Yes. Yeah, Zay Flowers, there have been, again, I don't want to say high-end comps, but people do say that there's a little bit of Antonio Brown in him. I want to see what he weighs in at, what his actual size and speed are this weekend. But he's another one that could fly up boards. You're going to get to see his agility on, in full force, and really what he is as a prospect. A lot of people don't know who he is because he does come out of Boston College, so that's why he floats here in the mid-second round. Sometimes you see him go later, sometimes earlier, depends upon the community and where who's in that draft. So something to monitor with him this weekend. Rashee Rice, another one that's a wide receiver that has a lot to prove, it feels like, because he didn't have a good showing at the Senior Bowl. So getting the run again, getting to show some fluidity out there, catching the ball, show that he is a true, big time wide receiver, because he's going to be a big guy. I think he's like 6'2", 220 or 215-ish. So we'll see if he actually weighs in at that. But in the end, like, wide receiver is just such a weird class. Like, you like the guys, but you don't love them. Some of these guys are going to get taken in the first, but it's probably going to depend upon landing spot. It's such a weird wide receiver class for me.
Yeah, this wide receiver class, I just feel like is just doomed to disappoint us. But we thought that of last wide receiver class too, where we didn't think anything about Christian Watson, or Sky Moore was really the only disappointment out of the last class. Jahan Dotson, I think, has at least held his value laterally. So a lot of those guys, Garrett Wilson, I don't think anybody was projecting him to be a top 7 wide receiver as we currently sit in the marketplace right now. So maybe these wide receivers do come out and prove us wrong again. Maybe we're just a little bit too low on them now, but it does feel like it's a lot weaker class than what we've seen out of the last 2 or 3 years from the wide receiver room. Past those guys, we do have Evans here, who I thought I was the lowest on, but I continually have to take him in our mocks. Roschon is a guy who the NFL community apparently loves. They love his pass block, and he's just a guy in the locker room who's going to be a glue guy for a lot of teams, and just a guy who can pretty much do a little bit of everything. A lot higher than I've seen on him from the NFL side that I have the fantasy side. And Izzy, he's going to be one of those burners again at the running back room. We're going to have a lot of guys who are probably running 4.3 even some sub 4.3s. Probably at least one of these guys comes out and runs 4.2 something in this class.
I'm really looking forward to it, because I believe Abanikanda and Achane are back to back. I think Tank is in between, is right after them. So Tank Bigsby, I feel so bad for him. He's going to look so slow no matter what. And then you have Chase Brown right after that. And Chase Brown is a fast dude as well. He's not going to be on the Izzy and Achane levels, I don't think, but it is a fast track. So these speed guys might get a little bit of a boost. So we'll see what Chase Brown does. Fun group to watch. But yeah, I'm with you. Roschon is another name to watch. Not only do teams love him, if he tests well, you could see him skyrocket at the board. Right? We've heard industry play, people that are like tapped into the NFL side saying that he could be like the third running back off the board or a top, at least the top 5 running back off the board. If that happens, like, man, it's going to be really hard to not take him in the early to mid second instead of here in the late second. But yeah, like as I pull up the third round, you see all of these running backs. Tajay Spears, another big name. Like the fact that he's in the third, holy cow! Like he's another big time riser. Not only from the Senior Bowl, he's going to have a big week ahead of him. But teams love what they've seen already. Kenny McIntosh, Eric Gray, Deuce Vaughn, Evan Hull, Dwayne McBride, Chase Brown here at the end of the third. Lots and lots of running backs.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a loaded class. And another guy in Tajay Spears who could, again, run close to a 4.3, sub 4.3.
Oh, yeah.
Just another burner. Like all of these guys, like there's just so many guys in this class who are going to be pushing the boundaries of a 4.3 40-yard dash time. I'm beyond excited to watch this. I hope I can maybe I could put in some PTO on this Friday and just take off the day. I know they actually have it at night now, but I need some time to prep myself just to be able to watch these guys run the 40. But after that, we do have a Luke Musgrave, another guy who's just for, RAS score, we're going to say is probably one of those guys who's just going to test out of this world if he's able to do that. Tillman is a guy, I actually really want to go back and watch Tillman from 2021 because he's a guy I consistently see mocked in like the third round, but he's a third rounder in, all of these rookie drafts that I see as well. And if he's, top of the third round in the NFL draft, I could see him going a little bit higher if he lands in the right spot.
Yeah, no, said Tillman, I felt like he had a very good year until he got hurt, right? Like it seemed like everything was tracking in, going his way. People were actually talking about Tillman over Jalen Hyatt. And even though Jalen had a great season, won the Biletnikoff, it was Tillman that they were talking about during that time. And, I don't want to relate these guys because they're not the same players, but Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith, right? Like Jalen Waddle was crushing it prior to his injury. And then Devonta Smith ended up going on and still tearing up once Waddle was hurt and won the Biletnikoff. I really do like said Tillman. Draft capital landing spot. Lots are going to come into play for these wide receivers. Same thing with Marvin Mims. Like he's another one that I secretly am keeping a close eye on. There's some prospects I've kept my mouth shut on because I do like them as later round darts, I guess you might want to call them. But basically these late second, third round picks that I feel like I might be able to get a good value on. But yeah, man, like again, it's wide receiver, and a lot of these guys are going to end up going in the third round.
Yeah, and I've heard a couple people in the fantasy industry just talk about like they're still excited about drafting these third round wide receivers, and once you get past that mid third range and all the way down to the seventh, the hit rate is just so infinitesimally small. Like you do not have Amon-Ra St. Brown's come out hardly ever for the NFL. And your hit rate on these guys, most of the time, they're going to be like the David Bells of last year, right? And so taking these guys, I mean, Khalil Shakir, we have a little bit of hope now because, he might start to take over the Isaiah McKenzie role. And there's just always hope with these late round wide receivers, and it barely ever comes to fruition. This is why in our mocks we see a lot of these running backs instead, because the running backs get hurt, they launch themselves into roles, and then they start for the next 3 games, and you can actually plug them into your lineups. And so this is why we see a lot of these running backs. It'll depend a lot on what these, where they go, where the free agency market lands a lot of the vets who are also free agents. And so we'll have a lot to see, but I still think running back is the way to go here once you get to rounds 3 and 4. But honestly, all of these guys in the third round, I even like Hutchinson, who we see here at the 212. Yeah. He had a fantastic production profile throughout his 3 years at Pitt. So I know they're a pass happy offense, but he even had really good production there. So all of these guys I do like, but I still have concerns from the wide receiver position once you really get past that top of the third round draft capital.
Yeah, exactly. And I know there are third round hits, on wide receivers. It does happen at an equivalent rate to some of the running back hit rates later on in drafts in the third and fourth. But in the end, the path to opportunity, the path to what I'm looking for is fantasy value. When will I be able to have an opportunity to flip these guys? And like you said, injury happens so frequently. Maybe these guys come in as a number two in an offense where they're going to come into touches right away, even though they are late round draft picks. Wide receiver just has that, like they have to do it, right? Like everything has to work out for that wide receiver for you to all of a sudden gain value and be able to either trade them or use them in your lineup. Because if things don't work out for, theoretical, Tillman and Mims in the third round and they don't produce right away, you can't flip them for anything. Like you can't even trade them for a third. You might be able to get a fourth for them. People are like, okay, sure, I'll throw a dart at the board here. But realistically, wide receivers are just tougher to get that value back on.
Tougher to get on the field. And yeah, I mean, it's just any of these guys. We saw it last year with all of the guys of Algier. We saw it with Damian Pierce. All of these guys that are in the fourth round as running backs, they just have a quicker opportunity to see the field and see their dynasty value rise. So that's where we typically like to see it. But with that, we do see the running back room thin out in the fourth because there's nobody left. Once you get past Mo Ibrahim and Chris Rod, man, you're looking at like Xavier Holiday. There's some other names that Cameron Peoples.
Cameron Peoples, yeah.
Yeah, there's some names out there, but I'm going to wait for those names until the NFL draft tells us what those names are. So
yeah, we'll see this fourth round really take shape after the combine and after the draft because you're going to see risers and fallers and guys that we aren't even drafting right now will end up getting drafted because all of a sudden they have a blazing 40 time, they vault themselves up, or they get random second round draft capital and Tutu Atwell, and you're like, oh yeah, I'll take him. Like some of these guys are gonna come out of nowhere. There is some interesting names here. We do have Tyler Scott out of Cincinnati, a fun name, speedster. See where he lands, what draft capital. Tank Dell, riser. Like if I'm able to get a Tank Dell in the fourth round, I kind of feel good. But again,
very good.
Wide receivers, size concerns. There's a lot of question marks. So I get why people do pass on him. But for me, in the third and fourth rounds, I love hammering running back and tight end. So you see Darnell Washington, who should be actually like a first round or second round tight end. Tyler
usage.
Yeah, Tucker Kraft and Sam Laporta here again. They could be risers. So that's what I'm looking to take here in the fourth round, to see if I can hit on one of these guys that might end up having value at the tight end spot.
Yeah, and in most of your drafts, you're probably not going to see 7 running backs actually go within the third round. You're not going to see another 7 go within the second round too. I mean, maybe the fantasy landscape has shifted that much. I haven't seen it personally. Most of the people that I've seen around the community are just like, oh yeah, Parker Washington in the third, Raheem Jarrett, Jaden Reed, all of these guys are going in the third round from what I've typically seen across the fantasy landscape. But maybe we do get, once the draft capital lands up, we'll actually see this. We have a lot more of the process to go through, but this is where we're sitting right now. I do think that the 2 names who excite me in this round, though, are Tyler Scott and the guy that you took, Nate Dell, because I've consistently seen them mocked in the second or third round of the NFL draft. All of the rest of these guys are like 4th to 6th, maybe, if they're not 7th or UDFAs. So those are the 2 guys that I'm really excited about. But as you said, they are the smaller, speedster profiles, and we haven't really seen that profile ever fully come to fruition in the NFL for fantasy football production. But they're probably going to have the name if they get that draft capital, and so I probably will take them a little bit higher than what they should be in the hopes of flipping them later. But again, so much left of the process to prove. Tucker Kraft, Sam Laporta, 2 tight ends, as you mentioned, that have some upside. We'll see where they land as well, what they test in at this week. And then Tanner McKee. Truthfully, after the first 5 quarterbacks, I don't have much faith. It feels like just kind of a Carson Strong throw from last year.
Yeah.
Maybe they get in. But, I mean, hey, we saw Sam Howell have a little bit of a hype season in the past couple of weeks. So even though they've said he's just our tight end 1 as of now because we don't have anybody else. But maybe Tanner McKee can get himself in. I have actually seen him mock to the New Orleans Saints a lot. So if that happens and they like try to bring back Andy Dalton or Jameis Winston in front of him, he could have a shot to start year one.
Yeah, some of these quarterbacks we'll see. Hendon Hooker again. We skipped over him in the third, but there have been rumors of him interviewing really well. Sounds like he might actually be ready for the start of the season. We'll see. I don't know about how true that's actually going to be, but again, landing spot situation. You monitor those players to see if there is a path to relevance. And then to wrap up the draft, you do have Trey Palmer and Jaden Reed. Go Big Red. So I have to rep my Nebraska guy. He's going to run in the 4.3s this weekend. I gotta speak up for my guy. I really do hope he has an incredible combine. He's going to be fast. It's just I'm interested to see the agility drills and kind of see what the narrative is around him, or if there's any talk about him at all, right? Like if there's no word about him, like there was at the Senior Bowl, like he had one good play where he burned a DB. Outside of that, silence. And I'm like, that is not what you want. Like I would love for them to at least say, yeah, Trey Palmer had a highlight, looked good here and there. Nothing. Yeah. So I hope there's some buzz out of him after this weekend. But
yeah, you're probably hoping for like a Josh Palmer upside at best.
Right. Maybe. Yeah. Give me a Palmer. Palmer.
Yeah, he started a couple games here and there for you. He's got some best ball interest. He'll be on your teams, but yeah, it's
friggin' fast.
Probably all you're looking at, but hell, he is damn fast. So anything else you got here as we wrap up this 4-round mock that we're breaking down from the DD community?
No, again, patreon.com/allgas. If you want to be part of the hands down the best dynasty fantasy football community, definitely join in, be a part of these mocks, pick our brains. You can talk with Ray. You can talk with anyone in this community. Incredible group of people. Make sure you do that. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. We'll definitely be doing some of these more in the next couple weeks. Actually, we'll be doing this for the next couple months up until everyone's rookie draft. So thank you again for joining us here in the Fantasy Draft Room.